Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to be with you today. Dr. Weber Ndoro, ICCROM Director General, Mr. Ernesto Ottoni, UNESCO ADG for Culture, the Honorable Minister Simon Kofi, Tuvalu Minister for Justice, Communication and Foreign Affairs, Mr. Tim Badman, Dr. Alexandra Zantaki, ladies and gentlemen. Last November, during COP26, Minister Kofi delivered his remarks at the podium knee-deep in water. The very real prospect of entire nations disappearing with climate-induced rising sea levels is terrifying. We in Jordan face a much less wet, but equally real threat to our future. Jordan is one of the driest countries in the world. Water scarcity, which undoubtedly is exacerbated by climate change, is impacting every aspect of our life and is currently the greatest threat to our future. We know how devastating climate change is for many of us, particularly vulnerable communities. We also know that cultural heritage will be heavily impacted. Why is this important? It is important because cultural heritage is a critical sector for development, employment, creativity, identity, social cohesion, and peace building. But equally important, cultural heritage plays a critical role in building people's resilience and their capacity to adapt, innovate, and survive. In recent years, we have witnessed significant loss and often irreversible damage to cultural heritage sites and artifacts as a result of climate-induced fires, winds, erosion, sea level rise, droughts, and changes in precipitation, flooding, and extreme weather phenomena. And only recently, UNESCO issued a scientific assessment that detailed the role forests in World Heritage Sites play to mitigate climate change by absorbing 190 million tons of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere each year. But what was alarming was the finding that 10 forests released more carbon than they sequestered because of pressure from human activity and climate change. In Jordan, rising temperatures cause damage to fragile rock structures, particularly sandstone, and we see evidence of cracks and rock instability affecting the magnificent monuments of Petra, for example. Increased evaporation alters humidity levels and impacts Qusayr Amra, Petra, and the churches of northern Jordan, where murals and wall paintings will suffer from corrosion, mold, and salt damage. Intangible cultural heritage suffers major damage and loss with the effects of climate change as well. The decline and disappearance of vegetation, plant and animal species changes important cultural practices, traditions, passed down culinary skills, use of medicinal herbs, and precipitates the loss of food security. Climate-induced damage results in a change in people's relationship with each other, with the land, and with the places they identify with. This produces an evolution in the sense of identity and values and the loss of traditional stories, rituals, and traditions that are no longer set in an identifiable cultural landscape. Ultimately, climate change will impact people's lives, livelihoods, and their way of life, reshaping economies, landscapes, and communities. To survive, people, particularly those most vulnerable, must build resilience. And the key to resilience are culture and heritage. Culture-based strategies build on traditional systems of social cohesion and communal strength to enable people to cope with stress and change. They focus on inherited values of trust, social networks, and place attachment, all critical to how communities come together and survive in times of challenge. Culture-based strategies emphasize important but often unrecognized local, traditional, and indigenous knowledge, traditional technologies, including techniques and innovation through practice and adaptation. They acknowledge resource-based livelihoods, traditional use of the land and sea for subsistence, and sustainable management approaches. The ancient hydrological systems of the Nabateans, for example, hold invaluable lessons for Jordan and other poor communities, water poor communities, to inform our approaches to water harvesting, collection, distribution, and use. And there is much to be learned from traditional building practices, the use of materials, agricultural techniques, and much, much more. Culture-based strategies honor diversity and incorporate unique and differing worldviews and belief systems, languages, and values. Culture provides both the capacity for dialogue and exchange, which fosters interconnectedness, and also emphasizes adaptive learning, including the role of creativity and inspiration in adaptation and innovation. We anticipate the need for urgent, rapid, and far-reaching measures. We know that change is difficult, disruptive, and often unfair. Culture embodies within it an intangible quality that remains critical for human well-being and peace of mind. It is a celebration of beauty, of history, of human connection. It defines our national identity and what is important to us. It expresses our national character. And in our collective efforts to begin the process of evolution and transformation in our production and consumption patterns, in our lifestyles, our national character matters. It will be the glue that holds together our communities and the necessary reminder that we are doing this for all of us and for generations to come. There is a need to have not only a conversation about climate with culture colleagues, but also a conversation about culture with our climate colleagues. And there has been much progress in recent years at many levels. The Climate Heritage Network, for example, is working to mainstream culture and heritage into international climate policy and science, both to improve the effectiveness of climate policy and to create frameworks, entry points, and better practices for culture-based climate action. The inclusion of the network in September 2021 in the Race to Resilience initiative was a turning point for mainstreaming culture into climate action. The first time culture and heritage were included in a major UN climate campaign. And there are numerous examples of significant action being taken to build resilience of communities at the very local level as well. The International National Trusts Organization, for example, supports efforts to protect cultural heritage sites and communities living in and around them, and to build their resilience and ability to adapt, mitigate, and ultimately survive the devastation of climate change. In addition, many international organizations are doing cutting-edge science and global advocacy to incorporate culture and heritage in the climate agenda. UNESCO's work is a wonderful example, as well as that of its advisory bodies, ICCROM, ICOMOS, and IUCN. Today, this work is more important than ever. Our collective work is more important than ever. We must work together to amplify the voices of culture and heritage in climate action. We must prioritize culture-based strategies in our global efforts to find solutions and implement mitigation and adaptation measures. We must find the financing to set up a global cultural adaptation fund to protect and preserve our cultural heritage in the most vulnerable places. And we must do whatever it takes to make vulnerable communities more resilient to climate change. I would like to say thank you to ICCROM for this invitation, and to Aparna and Dr. Marcy Rockman and everyone involved in organizing this initiative. We are also very grateful to the British Council and the Cultural Protection Fund for their continued support, and to all partners of the Climate Culture Peace Consortium. I do apologize for not being able to be with you in person, and I hope to join the question and answer session, but it was for commitments that were beyond my control. I wish you all the best in your deliberations, and I look forward to joining you soon. Thank you.